David Brewster here with another 3 for All, and this is 3 Eric Johnson licks from 1975. And I'm sure some of the viewers out there are probably confused by the date and the graphic, that I made for this lesson. But believe me, you have to remember Eric Johnson, started playing guitar when he was 11. And in 1970, around the Austin area, he played with a group called Mariani, I think it's pronounced. And then from 74 to 77, he played with the Electromagnets in the Austin, Texas, area. And I'd heard of the group, and I've definitely heard, some early, recordings and some early, I saw some live footage of him playing with Carole King and some other early performances. But I recently stumbled upon a live performance. I guess it was on PBS in the Austin area of the Electromagnets in 1975. And they play, and then they're kind of interviewed, and they play, and it's about 29 minutes long, just under a half hour, and it's really interesting. So he would have been around 20 or 21 years old at the time, and it's really cool to hear him play that young and that early in his career, and you can hear it. You can hear the phrasing, the vibrato, and the licks and things like that, and you have these little tastes of things that were about to come from Eric Johnson. A lot of people forget that Eric has had guest appearances and session work early in his career. Christopher Cross and Cat Stevens and Carole King, and there's a lot of people that Eric worked with early, and then of course that trend has continued. He cut an album with Mike Stern, and he's done a lot of interesting things in his career. And he's still working, And here's an image just to give you a heads up on some of the people that he's recorded or worked with and collaborated with. Some of you that might be skeptical and you're still thinking, this can't be the same Eric Johnson, believe me, it is. And here's a clip of him being interviewed during the interview segment from this TV footage. And it's obvious if you've ever heard Eric Johnson, speak or watched an interview with him, you can tell that it's him just from hearing him talk.
We all had basic rock training, and then some of us got into jazz, and others of us got into some kind of weird Eastern music or something.
And then one more thing, this might hurt your eyes, because I know when I saw it, I thought, wow, I've never really seen him, playing with that guitar before. Now, most people associate, Eric with Fender Strats, and I love Strats, obviously. But, occasionally he'll use a 335, usually a red, Gibson 335. But in the video, he's playing a Les Paul, a Sunburst Les Paul, and I've never really seen him use a Les Paul before. And maybe I've seen a photograph or something like that, but to actually watch him, play with a Les Paul was really interesting. The first lick is this flying G minor pentatonic run, and he's playing out of the box, around the 15th position. And it's very obvious that this is Eric Johnson. Even from 1975, you can tell that it's him playing. And I've heard, different variations and versions of this in the 80s, 90s, and all the way up till today. And it looks and sounds like this. And there you can see we're starting, out of the box, and he's also targeting the ninth, that A note right there. And he's playing this kind of dynamic, blues lick. And after he does that bend, then he does this. It's kind of a signature phrase from him. And it's just crammed in there too. And I also like that whole step bend, from the B flat up to the C. Here's the clip of him playing this in 1975. The next lick is this really expressive kind of jazzy idea, and it's in B flat minor. And He actually ends it with a chord too, a B flat sus4, which is really interesting. Something like this. And I like licks and phrases like that too. So he's kind of playing with this chromatic idea where he slides and also uses a hammer on, and he's targeting that F sharp right there. And that's really cool too, where he's, you know, playing that E flat and kind of slides in and out of it. Really cool. So one more time there. And then right there, he's going to do this trill between C and D flat. And that's where he plays the B flat sus4 at the end. Really cool phrase. The next idea is this position shifting arpeggio based idea, and he's kind of flirting with an A major 9 tonality. And I've definitely caught Eric playing different versions and variations of this idea, but it's just unusual to hear it and see it, you know, from 1975. So it's kind of an A major 9, and it looks like this. It's really short, but I'm going to throw out some variations and some additional, you know, versions of this idea just for you to kind of play around with and experiment. But it's something like this. And it's, like I said, short and sweet. And there you can see we're grabbing A, and then we're grabbing the 9th there, that B note, and sliding to C sharp, and then grabbing E. And then do the exact same thing in the next octave. And then just end right there on A on the 10th fret on the B string. Now, if you want, you could expand that in the next octave, and we could target this A way up on the, you know, 17th fret there on the high E. And then, of course, makes it a little bit harder because you're going a little bit further, but a really interesting phrase. Now, we could also flip that to the relative minor, you know, and you could experiment with F sharp minor, which would be right here. Slightly modified because now we're, you know, doing a minor third right there, that A note. And you could expand that, reach up and grab that higher F sharp right here. But the phrase from this video footage is this. And here's a bonus lick from this live footage, and it's this mix and match arpeggio based idea. And it's targeting one arpeggio on the way up, and then it changes to a different tonality on the way down. Something like this. You know, really cool phrase. I love ideas like that. And on the way up, he's basically hitting a D minor arpeggio right here. And he kind of adds that additional, you know, hammer-on pull-off there on the high E string. And kind of targeting that G note right there. And then on the way down, I'm kind of hearing that as like an A minor 9, which is definitely, you know, kind of at home in Eric Johnson's, you know, chord vocabulary and his universe. So when you put those two phrases together, you've got this lick. You know, really interesting and modern sounding, even though it was technically played and recorded back in 1975. One more time. Alright, that's going to wrap this look at 3 Eric Johnson licks from 1975, and I'm definitely a big Eric Johnson fan. And, you know, I've met him a couple times. I saw him in Indianapolis, you know, on this tour when he was doing the Avia Musicom, kind of a, you know, anniversary tour. and I met him after the show, and then I met him last summer at Gearfest up in Sweetwater. And I mean, he's a phenomenal guitarist. He's a very kind of sincere and serious, person. But you can tell. I mean, he's got a heart of gold. He's very warm and very friendly. When you talk to him, and then when he picks up a guitar, he just melts faces and just inspires people in a great way. And I have had some people asking about books. Viewers and students have been asking, some book recommendations. And I have talked about this before. But if you're an Eric Johnson fan, you have to have a copy of this laying around in your library somewhere. The Total Electric Guitar, book, and you have online access to the classic, instructional video that Eric had. But there's some new, transcriptions, and they basically notate a lot of the licks and phrases and chords and all these different things that he demonstrates in that video. This is dynamite. This is one of the best books in my library, and I have a lot of books. But I do like taking this one out and just working through some of the licks and phrases, and it seems like every time I open that book, I end up learning something different or playing something new, which that to me is the sign of a good book, if I'm constantly learning from it. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content material. Thank you.